So we know now if we eat a meal and it's metabolically precise, what we've done then is we've capitalized on the opportunity to eat a meal that's going to help us build muscle, lose fat, and increase our metabolism. So if that's an opportunity, what's a missed opportunity or what's a mistake? So how do you count up your compliancy, or what's the correct way to do it? Well, the correct way to do it is to identify where mistakes are, or for want of a better term, missed opportunities. So if you eat a meal that's not metabolically precise, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad or that it's a mistake. What it just means is that it's just an opportunity that you haven't utilized. I think that's the best way of looking at it because it takes the emotion out of it. So let's look at this day here. Meal ones, just say you normally have an omelette for breakfast around 6:30 a.m., but you've slept in, so you missed your breakfast. So that's a meal that you normally have in the morning that you've not had due to sleeping in. You could call it a mistake. All you've done there really is you've missed out on an opportunity to feed your body with the nutrients that it needs to build an optimal metabolism. So it's just a missed opportunity really. But then what happens is you get to around say 10 a.m. where you normally have your second meal and you're grabbing a chocolate bar from the vending machine. So normally you'd have a smoothie or a liquid meal for your morning tea, like we learned about in lesson 4. But because you've slept in and you haven't been able to take all your meals to work, or you've just got cravings now because you missed your breakfast, now you're reaching for a chocolate bar. So you could say you've had 2 missed opportunities. One was a missed meal and the next meal was a chocolate bar rather than a healthy meal. So we basically just got 2 missed opportunities. So on this day, all the way up till about 12 o'clock, the body has not received any nutrients to help it build muscle, stabilize insulin, reduce inflammation, improve cognitive function. There's no vitamins, there's no minerals. There's just chocolate, which is highly processed, very palatable food, but will give you an insulin spike, which is going to cause cravings later on. So again, not good or bad, not right or wrong, just missed opportunities. We do have a nice healthy lunch. We do have a healthy liquid meal in the afternoon. And then we have a healthy dinner. So 5 meals, if you normally have 5 meals, so that's 3 solid meals and 2 snacks or 2 smoothies, if you want to call them, 5 meals with 2 missed opportunities. So let's just say you got up in the morning, you didn't sleep in, so you had your omelette. Then in morning tea, you did have your smoothie. But at lunchtime, you either didn't prep your lunch, or maybe you forgot to bring it, or you didn't have a break. So you worked through lunch and you didn't have your lunch break. So you've got a missed lunch there. So this is a skipped meal. Then in the afternoon, because you haven't had anything solid to eat since like 7:30 in the morning, yes, you had a liquid meal at 11 a.m., but you haven't had a solid meal since 7:30 a.m. By 3 p.m., you've got that 3 p.m. crash, which means your insulin has dropped. Now you have cravings. So you're not going to have the smoothie you normally have. You're going to reach for that chocolate bar at the vending machine. So by missing that meal at lunch, it's caused cravings, which causes you to make more bad choices, make more mistakes, make more unideal choices, choose non-compliant foods. So here we've got 2 missed opportunities as well. This is why keeping a food diary is so powerful. It's not to get a right, a wrong, or a tick in the box from your trainer. It's to start to identify patterns in your own behavior. So when you write down what you've eaten, what you're doing is you're writing down data. You're not writing down emotions, you're writing down data. This is what I ate. This is the time that I ate it. This is how much I had. Later on, say a week later, 2 weeks later, or 3 weeks later, you'll look back at that data and you're now looking at it as just data without emotion. But we always eat according to our emotions. So if you've got cravings or you're stressed, you're going to make choices to eat ice cream or whatever. But you're not going to eat ice cream when you are feeling good and healthy and on track and you've got all this food readily available. You're more likely to choose ice cream when you're tired, you're craving, or, stressed out, broke up with your boyfriend. So later on, you can look back and go, oh, you can look at your own data from a third-party perspective. So you're looking at your own information without the emotion that you had at the time of consuming the food. If you do it as you go, it's going to be really powerful because you'll look back and you go, wow, I didn't realize I was having that many coffees, or I didn't realize I was skipping that many meals, or I was making that many mistakes at the time. Because what happens is your brain will always remember what you were trying to do because that's what you're focused on. That's what you're thinking about. It's not going to remember what it actually did because we often make decisions based on things that have happened in the moment. So we're not making decisions based on what we plan to do. We're just making decisions based on the here and the now. So when you're tracking your data, what you're doing is you're writing down what actually happened, not what you're trying to do. So there's a big difference between when you tell someone, oh, I've been eating healthy and I don't know why things are changing, and here's a live, accurate log of what's really been happening, because then the data is going to be really clear. You're going to know exactly what needs to change next, especially if you're logging things like your weekends, what you got up to on the weekend, all your beverage choices, including alcohol, soft drinks, and all the additional information, like all the bites, licks, and tastes, so all those little extra things that you didn't plan for but just kind of happened. You've got to learn what you're good at, but you've also got to learn what you suck at, because the only way to get better at this is to know what you suck at so you can focus on it and get better at it. The thing is, consistency always beats perfection. So if you are a perfectionist, it can be to your own detriment, because then the moment you have a slip up, then you feel like it's all for nothing and you stop doing it completely. Whereas to me, I think done is better than perfect. So that means this is the best I could do today. It may not have been perfect, but this is the best I could do. No emotion attached to it, not beating myself up for whether it's perfect or not. This is what actually happened. Raw data. Because if you can do it without the emotion, it's very easy to look at your own data and go, right, this is my logical next step. I keep missing meals in the afternoon because I always work through and never take a lunch break. Or I keep sleeping in and skipping breakfast, so I need to sort out my sleep habits. You're going to look at it and go, right, what's the worst thing I'm doing consistently right now? And just focus on that. Then all the smaller things that you think probably also need to be improved on, you'll look at them and go, oh, well, I've got bigger things I could be focusing on right now. Look at what you do over a week and subsequent weeks. So, for example, string, say, 2 or 3 weeks of data together, and then look at the patterns in the data. Because if you, for example, keep a food diary Monday to Friday, and then you leave it blank Saturday, Sunday, and you do that week after week, chances are the thing that needs to be focused on first is actually what you do on the weekend. So you're going to look at your own data and go, I'm eating perfect. I don't know why nothing's changing. Yeah, but you haven't actually recorded the days that need to be recorded. So if you go Monday to Sunday, say, for 3 weeks straight, you're going to start to see patterns in your behavior, things that you maybe do daily, maybe things that you do weekly, could even be something that you do several times a month. But you need those at 2 or 3 weeks of really consistent data to really start to understand what your habits are. If you do have a bad meal, here's the key, and any lean person will tell you this as well. They still eat off the plan. It's not really what you're having, though, that matters. It's the amount. So if you binge and you gorge, that's when things start to derail, because then you are bloated, you're lethargic, it affects your sleep, you can hardly move, then your energy levels drop, you don't want to go train. So one session of overindulging can have a cascading effect of negative habits. Whereas if you are out with friends and you say go out for lunch and you have a restaurant meal and you would count that as a non-compliant meal or a missed opportunity, but you eat till you're satisfied, then 2 or 3 hours later you're hungry again and your next meal is on track. So it's one of your healthy staple meals. That non-compliant meal is going to do minimal, if not no damage at all, because you were straight back on the wagon. You didn't overindulge to the point where it stops you from eating your next meals. Because when we overindulge, the first thing that does is it affects our feeding frequency. So once we start affecting our feeding frequency, then the insulin's going up and down, and then we start getting cravings, and then we end up not eating a lot for a long time, and then we end up reaching for chocolate again, because we've got that yo-yo effect happening. You've got to remember that shit happens though, so just move forward. Don't beat yourself up. Don't get upset, because if you do, then you end up in that shame spiral and you're actually more likely to keep sabotaging yourself. And again, you haven't failed. You've got to identify your strengths and weaknesses. The people that are willing to do this are willing to learn. We've all got weaknesses. Knowing what they are and knowing what you need to focus on is actually very, very powerful. So if you don't like talking about your weaknesses or figuring out what they are, that's probably the key, is to just get comfortable with that part first. Now let's review the rules. Okay, so for a meal to help optimize our metabolism, improve how we look, function, and feel, these are the points that it needs to include. It needs to have a first-class protein, which means it's got a high concentration of essential amino acids. Essential amino acid means that these are amino acids that the body can't produce on its own, so it needs to get it from food. It also needs to be low in fat, so 10 grams or less per 100 grams of food. You can get them from most animal products, okay, because they do have a high concentration of protein, Plant foods do have protein. For example, fruits and vegetables do have protein in them, but they're usually not a complete protein, so they don't have all the essential amino acids. Both can be either high or low sources of good and bad fats as well. So if I look at something like salmon is a first-class protein because it's got all the essential amino acids and it's low in saturated fat, but it also has good fat in it, which we're going to talk about soon. So that one actually kills two birds with one stone. Make sure you study the protein charts and you'll see that we've separated them out. So for those that want to follow an animal-free protein diet, you can choose from the animal-free protein lists. And for those that don't follow an animal-free protein diet, you can choose from any of those protein lists. But you see we've separated these all out. So if you're not sure about which first-class protein sources are best, anything from that list is going to help you hit those points. Let's review the rules for carbohydrates. So when we talk about carbohydrates right now, we're going to talk about low energy carbohydrates. In a later lesson, we're going to talk about high energy carbohydrates, but for now we want to talk about low energy carbs, specifically fruits and vegetables, unprocessed whole food, because this should be a staple in everyone's diet. Not only are they going to give us all the vitamins and minerals that we need, but they keep our insulin levels stable, they help reduce cravings, and it's that steady release of energy throughout the day. So rather than getting that 3 p.m. crash in the afternoon, we're going to eat a small amount, and it doesn't need to be a big serving. Even if you have 3 raspberries in one meal, so you make a liquid meal and you put 3 raspberries in it, that meal has a source of low energy carbohydrate. If we look at the difference between high and low energy as well, what exactly is the difference? The easiest way to describe this is that high energy is generally from a packet, so it's processed things like rice, oats, pasta, bread. Borderline also, bananas and potatoes would be borderline high energy carbohydrate. So if you're wanting to lose body fat, it's probably safest to class potatoes and bananas as high energy. And we'll talk about when to have them later, because you should still have high energy carbohydrates in your diet. But for the purpose of separating high and low energy out, we're going to say that most highly processed carbohydrates would be classed as high energy carbohydrates, so things from a packet, and low energy are going to be things from the ground. So that's pretty much any fruit and vegetable you can think of, apart from, again, banana and potatoes, borderline high energy, and that includes sweet potatoes. And again, we've separated out the carbohydrates charts for you. So there's the high energy, the medium energy, and the low energy. So looking at those low energy, so any fruit and vegetable that you can think of will be on that list. And if they're not on the list, it's only because there's so many in the world that we couldn't name them all. But each meal should have a source of low energy carbohydrate. And think about rainbows. So think about all the different colors, because they all provide different minerals. They all provide different vitamins. The more you get rainbows when it comes to your low energy carbohydrate sources, the better. Medium carbohydrates, we'll talk about this soon, but if you're quite early on in your journey and you want to lose body fat, we're going to class the medium carbohydrates as closer to high energy, which means we're going to consume them inside the metabolic window, which is after you train, and I'm going to talk about this in a later lesson. But for the purpose of making your meals throughout the day, we definitely want to source from the low energy carbohydrate chart. The medium and the high, we're going to save that for later on, because yes, you still need them in your diet, but there's a very specific place we can put them to get the most out of them, to optimize our results from them. Now let's look at good fat. So every meal should contain a source of good fat. Obviously there's different types of fats. We want the good fats. It is a myth that a low-fat diet is essential to fat loss. It is a fact that the right fats will speed fat loss. The wrong fats will promote inflammation, weight gain, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, cancer, mental degeneration, and poor results from exercise. It is a fact, though, that 95% of the population is chronically deficient in omega-3. And the sad news is that popping fish oil capsules will not do much. Why? Because most people are deficient in omega-3, not omega-6. Fish oil is not going to give you the right ratio. So if you want more omega-3 in your diet and you pop fish oil capsules, you're actually going to get more omega-6, and it's not going to fix the deficit. What will fix the deficit is things like flaxseed oil. So there's lots of other good sources of good fats as well. Again, study that good fat chart. Make sure you have a source of good fat in each meal so that you can get the benefits of having good fats. Don't forget, success comes from finding your why. So it's great for me to talk about the best types of fats and the best types of carbs and when to eat this and when to eat that, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't have a big, strong why, none of this stuff is going to stick. Here's an example of a good, strong why. At this point, Rachel had lost about 50 kilos. She did keep going and lose more, but when she first started, she said that she wanted to stop the obesity cycle in her family because she was a young mum. She didn't want her kids to have the same weight problems she had growing up. And look, to be honest, a lot of people say that, but she actually stuck to it. And this was it. It wasn't actually about her anymore. For her to lose the weight, she certainly benefited from it. But it was about stopping a cycle in her family so that her kids would grow up with the health that she wanted to have when she grew up. So it was changing her own habits so that her kids could watch her and learn. Amy Bean was a nurse at the time. She was working in the ICU unit. So she used to do a lot of night shifts as well. So her sleep was all over the place. But she had Crohn's disease, which is where your body doesn't produce enough of the right good bacteria. So often when you have bad bacteria growing in your body, there's nothing to fight it. So she would end up in hospital all the time with terrible stomach pain. She would end up in hospital all the time with flare-ups in her gut. Her why for getting in shape and building muscle, building a metabolism, was actually to triumph over Crohn's disease. So this is a very genuine why. And yes, you could say that the outer appearance is great. She looks great. But it wasn't for that. That was just the byproduct or the end result of focusing on her inner health and her gut health. And she actually implemented it so consistently that she put herself into remission from Crohn's and ended up being the ambassador for Crohn's and Colitis Australia. So you can take this as far as you want to take it. What matters though is not that you have the right information or the right science or the right coach or the right program. You have to have the right why. What's a why that's going to make you want to do this no matter how hard it gets? As I'll say this to you now, it's not what you know, it's what you implement that matters.